We'll actually will know on election day, election night, I should say, who the next president's going to be, because I just think the numbers are going to overwhelm where any kind of outstanding ballots are, and it's going to be probably called for Trump that night.
Well, Hal Lambert is a Republican mega donor, former advisor to Republican Senator Ted Cruz, and he served on the Inaugural Committee for President Trump when he was last in the White House. Good evening to you, Hal.
Good evening.
Well, Donald Trump is saying that the Republicans have a massive lead. That's not really what the polls are showing. How do you think it's looking?
It's looking pretty good for Trump. I would say this: if you look at the numbers, let's just take Pennsylvania, because that's really kind of the key state. Uh, the Democrats at this time in 2020 had a 1.4 million vote advantage going into election day. They're a million short right now, and urban turnout is way down. It's 380,000 less than it was in 2020. Female turnout is 450,000 less than it was in 2020. So when Trump's saying he's ahead, he's talking about numbers that are going to be very, very difficult for the Democrats to going to make up on election day. It's really troubling if you're in the Harris campaign. And by the way, that's across the board for all the swing states. I mean, the urban voters are just down. They're not there like they were in 2020. The female voters are not there like they were in 2020. Yes, in polling, she's ahead in the female vote. There's no question about it. But now you have to look at who's turning out, and they're just not turning out in the numbers that I think that the Democrats expected. So I would disagree with what was just said by the pollster. I think we'll actually will know on election day, election night, I should say, who the next president's going to be, because I just think the numbers are going to overwhelm where any kind of outstanding ballots are, and it's going to be probably called for Trump that night. That's my view of what's going to happen. We'll see if I'm wrong or not. But again, you've got polling and then you've got turnout, and we can see turnout. We can see it right now because we've had several weeks of early voting, mail-in voting, and you can see the numbers, and they're not matching up with the polling.
Well, it's a fascinating picture. We know that Donald Trump is ahead when it comes to the economy, which is a crucial issue, of course, for many voters. If you're right, what do you think it has been about his strategy that's helped him to get to this position, despite all his problems, the legal cases and so on?
Well, I think you nailed it right there. It's the economy. And if you're if you're lower income or middle income in the United States, you've been devastated by a tax, very regressive tax, which is called inflation. And so you're poorer than you were 4 years ago. And that's, there's more middle income and more lower income than there are elites. The elites are for Harris. They are, the Hollywood elites, the college, master's and PhD degree people. They're all for Kamala Harris. There's a lot less of them than there are middle income and low income people. And if you look at what's happened in the Republican Party since Trump really got active in 2015, it has become the blue collar party. It's become the party of the workers. It is not the elite party not the country club party that it was in the 80s. It's a very different party.
But it is a party, and Donald Trump is a leader who is struggling to win over women voters because of some of the comments that he's made in the past and during the campaign, and indeed those court cases against him.
Well, I think the women vote is really about abortion, and they've tried to make that the number one issue. Kamala Harris has tried to make that the top issue. It's really number 3 or number 4 behind the border and the economy, which is really inflation. So it just is not at the top of the list when you're trying to pay bills and you can't pay bills. You're looking at that more than you are, the abortion thing. So I think that's really the issue for women that are in Kamala's camp. I don't think it's necessarily comments that Trump's made in the past.
We're hearing that in Washington tonight, there are barricades being put up around many of the key buildings, the Capitol building and so on. We are hearing about lots of measures being taken at polling stations and at the counts because of fears of violence. If your predictions don't turn out to be true, and indeed Donald Trump does not emerge as the winner, will he accept the result? Will he accept the results that we will see emerging tomorrow night and possibly over the subsequent days?
Well, look, you have to have voting that doesn't have weird things happen like it did in 2020, where you stop counting at 3 in the morning all simultaneously in multiple states, where you have, water mains supposedly break, where you kick poll watchers out. As long as you have elections that are monitored and people feel are fair, I certainly think that if it turns out that she wins, that yeah, it will be accepted. And I don't think those barricades, quite frankly, are for Republicans. They're putting those up in Portland. They're putting up in Seattle. There's not Republicans that are going to riot in Portland. That's the left. This is about the left. Republicans don't go out and riot in the streets. This is a left phenomenon. It's Antifa and BLM. That's why those barricades are going up. Don't act like it's because if Trump doesn't win, there's going to be riots.
Well, I
It's if
suppose
Trump
people
wins,
have in mind the riots of January the 6th, don't they?
well, those weren't riots. That was a orchestrated protest that happened weeks and months after the election. Riots in the middle of the night are done by the left. Everybody knows it.
Hal Lambert, mega donor to the Republican Party and who served on Donald Trump's former inaugural committee. Really good to talk to you tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. And it sounds as though he has gone. Let's turn then to Antoine Seawright, who is a Democrat strategist and a former advisor to Hillary Clinton. Good evening to you, Antoine.
Good evening and happy Election Day Eve.
Yeah, good to speak to you. Donald Trump and indeed our previous guest there, Hal Lambert, are both predicting that Donald Trump's going to win and be a clear winner and that we're going to get that result as soon as election night tomorrow night. Do you agree?
Well, wisdom has been chasing them and they continue to outrun them. In other words, that's not a smart outcome prediction. The fact of the matter is everything that needs to be going Kamala Harris and the Democrats' way is going our way, from the resources raised, from the momentum, from the closing conversation. I don't like saying closing argument, to the mere fact that they've run a radical red meat, right wing racial campaign based in Trumpism rhetoric that has divided the American people in ways that we have never imagined. And hearing him just a few minutes ago and hearing the former president lay the groundwork, trying to claim victory and sow chaos about the election results, is every reason why we're going to win this election so big they won't be able to say it's rigged.
Well, just on that, and we were just discussing this with Hal Lambert, we're seeing barricades going up around some of the key buildings in Washington. We're hearing of other significant security measures being taken at polling stations and at counting stations right across the United States. Are you concerned that if there is a close result, that puts Kamala Harris ahead, that there could be trouble?
I am concerned because we all lived through that mob that stormed the Capitol at January 6th, that your previous guests, Donald Trump and others, called a love fest and called it peaceful protesting, where officers lost their lives. There were nooses hanging in the Capitol. People were climbing the Capitol windows, breaking doors, and so forth, as if we were not Americans. In this country, we express ourselves and our differences at the ballot box. When that happens, we accept the results, we certify the election, and move on. Because of these extremists, these right wing radicals, and their activities and their threats around not accepting their election results, we have to put barricades up and fences and so forth, something that does not even reflect our American values. Forget about Democrat or Republican for a second, but does not reflect our American values. And we continue to hear right wing extremists not commit to accepting the election results, that the people's will be done on tomorrow night.
Well, we were talking to pollster Ben Page earlier in the program, He told me that if you look at the key swing states, where, as I'm sure you know, the decision will finally be made. The decision on who becomes the next president is likely to be decided. Ben Page was saying that he reckons that it's pretty much a dead heat between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Is that what the picture that you're seeing?
Well, I think that's true to some degree, but you can't underestimate the fact that women are outperforming men at the ballot box. You can't underestimate the fact that African American voters are coming home, and we're often underestimated and undercounted in polls. And you can't underestimate the currency and the value that young Americans have when deciding American elections. And those three constituencies alone are breaking for Kamala Harris. If you add into that independent voters, independent thinkers, you add into that Latinos, and you add into that the Asian American Pacific Islander community, and then you add into that Puerto Rican Americans that, quite frankly, were disrespected at that hate rally in Madison Square Garden just last Sunday.
Yeah,
I
but
think that the coalition that will make up victory for Kamala Harris will look very diverse and unique and will look like America.
and how quickly do you think we could get a result tomorrow? We're hearing some predictions that we could get it as early as, well, in the UK, the early hours of Wednesday morning, early Wednesday morning in the United States. Or do you think it's going to be a much longer process?
Oh, I think it's going to be election week in the United States. I don't see us having the results uh, by Wednesday night or tomorrow night. I think it could be election week, and that's okay. The most important thing we can do as Americans is to keep calm, keep our composure, do not be um, penetrated or hypnotized by the right wing extremists who are going to be claiming victory early on in this process. Instead, we should wait till the elections are out and counted and see what happens as Americans. But I feel good. What you want to do, as someone who's been doing campaigns since 2004 in this country, you want to be in a good position to win a 50-50 jump ball. The reason I feel good is because all the things that you can control, Kamala Harris has done them, and Donald Trump and the extreme MAGA Republicans have given us another reason to be excited with their divisive, hateful closing that you see coming from all sides of the Republican Party.
And we'll leave it there. There seems to be a bit of a problem with the line, rather a lot of background noise there. Apologies for that. But Antoine Seawright, a Democrat strategist, former advisor to Hillary Clinton.